Okay, how's it going, everybody? Can you hear me all right, Baba?
Yep. How's it going? I'm pretty good. Pretty
Good,
good. How are
good,
you?
good. Not bad. Welcome to the second episode of Nexus Drafthouse, brought to you by StormLegacy.com. My name is Sahara Drac. I am an admin at StormLegacy.com and your host this evening. The whole idea of the show is to help people get better at the draft part of the game because, in my view, and the view of many others, the draft is a crucially important part of the game for winning. And obviously, I mean, you wouldn't be here if you didn't know that. And it's important, especially with the ranked revamp coming up. What better time to get any edge you can get? So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our second guest of the show. His name is Baba Booey Gaming. How's it going, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah. I mean, I'm doing pretty good. For those who don't know me, I cast heroes when I'm given the opportunity to. I used to play at an amateur level pretty competitively, and I'm fairly highly ranked. I like to think I know what I'm talking about, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I think you know what you're talking about too, and that's why asked you to be on the show, is because we want people on here who have a good head on their shoulders about HOTS and know what they're talking about. Okay, so what was I going to? Oh, I know. I wanted to add this to the show. So I would like to. I think on a lot of these shows we don't get to know the guests very well. We just kind of jump into stuff. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions about you, just so people know who you are. Beyond, I'm a guy who knows a lot about HOTS, and I thought, what better way to assess a person than from the questions on the bio screen from Street Fighter 2? So your name.
Real name or...
Your choice. You can answer these any way you want.
I am Peter Bababooey Belvedere.
All right. And your home country?
Canada.
Oh,
nice
Canada. Canudia. You know what? I'm going to refrain from making a single Canada joke just for you. Just for you.
Don't worry about it. I casted with Jayhow, and he couldn't help but laugh every time I said about, even if I said it correctly.
Because he knew a boot was lurking somewhere back there?
He knew it was going to happen eventually, so he'd just laugh.
Nice. Okay. What else do I remember from 8 years old? Your height, clearly important for casting HOTS.
6 feet flat.
Nice. That's a good height. That's a good height.
That's good height.
Fighting style. This is important. People need to know.
It is. Close my eyes and swing.
Okay, good one. Classic. That's a classic vintage style.
That's a classic.
And finally, your blood type.
I honestly have no clue.
All right. Nobody in the Western Hemisphere does, so that's okay. All right. So, now that we got that out of the way and we got to know you a little bit, we're going to talk about 2 games tonight. We're going to go over 2 drafts. Last week on the first episode, we did 1 draft and then went through the whole game. I thought, why not pack more drafts in, because you can watch the games anywhere, but you can't see multiple drafts in rapid succession. So, the first game we're going to do is from a game I cast, actually, about 2 days ago for the Sweet Synergies tournament with Haloran. It is Team Tyrant versus Team Blaze. We actually have 2 Team Blaze games today, which is cool. You can see their different draft styles. And it is going to be on Cursed Hollow. So first things first, going into Cursed Hollow, it's the first match of a series. What kind of things are immediately popping up in your head as far as drafting on this map?
As far as drafting on this map go... Sorry, what map are we on?
Cursed Hollow.
Cursed Hollow. All right. So one of the... I don't believe Abathur was picked. He might have been. Abathur, really good on this map. You want to really pressure globals. Ever since the release of Dahaka, Falstad, the global comps we've seen a lot more of. So things like Falstad, Brightwing, and Dahaka all together. They're really powerful just because they allowed you to get the split soak and allow you to apply pressure on the map. Abathur does a same kind of thing, but he provides more of a presence in the far lane,
right,
while also adding slight assistance to the fight. Right, the other heroes, they don't offer assistance in the far, offer pressure in the far lane and assistance in the fight. So you kind of have to pick when you want to commit to the fights.
Sure, that makes sense.
Some teams will run Lost Vikings. I don't really like it. It's good if your team knows how to run it, but a lot of the top teams and have practiced against it a lot, so they know how to counter and how to play well against it. But things like, other than that, things like Illidan, really good. Just just regular power picks in the meta are really strong on this map, anyways.
Okay, yeah. So global presence important on this map. Would you say what do you think is the most important map for global presence?
Probably Cursed Hollow.
Cursed Hollow. Okay. All right. So I'm just doing the draft manually. I have it written down how it went down, so that's how we're gonna do it. So we're gonna start it up now, and Team Blaze did have the first ban. So let me open these tabs real quick, and hit ready on these. Okay. So Team Blaze had the first ban, and they actually banned out, which is maybe not surprising to a lot of people. If I can find them, the alphabet's hard. There we go. Nope, wrong screen. And there we go. So they banned Tassadar first.
Okay, so
go ahead.
One of the reasons you banned Tassadar first is he's a really strong pick just in general. Mm-hmm. But one of the key things that it actually does is Tassadar banning Tassadar almost forces your opponents to ban Tyrande.
Right.
And Tyrande is really strong.
Sure. She's a monster.
Cursed Hollow.
In most places.
Yeah. Cursed Hollow specifically is one of the things I kind of forgot to mention, but if you take the Owl Build, it allows you to delay for a long time. So what are we going to see for the second ban?
Them birds squawking all over the map. So the second ban actually turned out to be none other than Tyrande.
Yeah.
So for those reasons, right?
Yeah, and it was a statistic, I believe, that it was not it's not the same patch, but the DreamHack Austin, every single game where Tassadar wasn't picked and Tyrande was, the team with Tyrande won.
Right, so Tassadar is pretty much your only weapon against her, and
exactly,
vice versa.
Because there's not a lot of burst mitigation other than Tyrande, or other than Tassadar, sorry.
Right. So this double pseudo support meta has been going on for a while now, with Tyrande and Tassadar being very popular at the highest levels of play.
Yeah.
Do you see anything on the horizon that may affect that? Medivh, perhaps, something like that.
Well, one of the things that actually affected it decently, I don't know if it'll make a huge difference, is the fact that stuns were nerfed so heavily, right? Mm-hmm. It's not. They were nerfed by about maybe 25% for the most part. They could put 0.25 up each one.
But not her.
Wasn't?
Not Tyrande. No, Tyrande was not touched. Yeah. That's
what
I noticed about it.
One of the reasons that she was good was because of the stun trains and her burst. And actually what I've seen so far is that the burst isn't as heavy because they're not locked down for as long.
Right.
So it's...
Absolutely.
She's starting to kind of follow it a little bit, but she's still up there, and Tassadar is still definitely top priority. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and take the first pick.
All right, so the first pick for Blaze was not a Nubarak. I thought this thing had infinite time. Well, this is technical issues. The first pick, you can ignore the Nubarak. The first pick was indeed Kael'thas. So just pretend that's a Kael'thas.
So that's really what we're expecting there. He's one of the strongest picks right now. Provides a lot of utility and doesn't really lock your team in anything. One of the other things that you can consider is Li Ming. They're both really, really high tier. Mm-hmm. The only real difference is Kael'thas doesn't offer the same amount of poke. Mm-hmm. Kael'thas Li Ming doesn't have the CC, and Li Ming has an escape. Yeah. Li Ming's a lot safer, yeah. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't put out as much damage as KT. So it's if you can reliably hit Gravity Lapse consistently, then Kael'thas is definitely the better pick. But you can often see teams take Li Ming because they have a strategy to deal with Kael'thas and they're good at diving.
Right. So the double pick coming out for Tyrant was Sonya and Alphabet. There he is, Sonya and Rhaegar.
So just feel free to pick them while I'm still talking, and then update me, just so we don't run out of time. Sure. So Sonya Rhaegar, just like a stupid good combo, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Taking away Tassadar means you don't get Sonya Tassadar, and Sonya Tassadar is really good. Mm-hmm. But Sonya Rhaegar is also really good because Sonya's like almost a melee assassin with the damage she puts out, but she's also a tank because of how tanky she is, right? So you get a lot of heals. Lightning Shield gets a lot of extra value, and you're giving yourself that extra damage and frontline presence, as well as it allows you to flex into whatever you want from that point on. So you can run you can even run a solo tank Sonya. It doesn't work that well, but it works.
Right. So I'm just moving forward in the draft that way we don't run into that again. So
Yep.
that's no problem. I actually had a further question about Sonya. You don't see Sonya a lot on BattleNet, but she's very, very popular in Korea and very, very popular at all the highest levels of play. What is the difference with Sonya between your average player, and what makes her so strong at the highest levels of play?
Really, what it comes down to is oftentimes you're left in a position where people want to play core DPS roles, and when you're playing these core DPS roles, you're not really able to fit in Sonya doesn't work as a solo tank, right?
Right.
So the reason you don't see her on ladder is because it requires you to have 2 tank players on your team. You don't want to run a solo tank Sonya. And then even with that, it requires a lot of communication between your support and your tank, and like synergy, because Sonya needs to know when she can keep going and when she needs to fall back. So
Right.
it makes her hesitate more when she's in solo queue.
Okay, I got you. That makes sense, actually. I that was a genuine question for me, because
Yeah.
I'm like, I like her, I do well with her, but yeah, there's definitely a high priority on BattleNet to be like, I want to kill everybody, and that's how I like to play, versus actually being effective in a team synergistic way. Yeah, okay, cool, thanks. So, after the Kael'thas pick, that is not an Uberak first pick, that would be crazy. The next 2 picks coming out for Blaze were Uther and, not Uther and ETC. Yes, Uther and ETC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the really powerful thing about Uther ETC is Divine Mosh.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the really weak thing about Uther ETC is that's the only thing Uther ETC, like, early game you get the roam pressure, but a lot of times what happens with ETC is you just use him as a mosh bot,
Right.
and if you can't land crucial moshes, you'll just lose the game, because there's like, he's at that point he's useless. We see a lot of him in Korea and like the Eastern scene, just because he has pretty good peel and he can dive really effectively.
Right. So
But again, he's more of a way he's played in NA, and I'm not so much sure, but EU too, is he's a walking mosh pit,
Right.
and that's really a bad way to look at him, because he brings so much more to the table, and people tend to save his CC for when they can use mosh, and if you do that, you're losing like his entire kit just because you want to get a 5-man mosh.
Right. To me, the greatest strength of ETC isn't that amazing ult. It's his incredible mobility as a tank.
Yeah.
He can move around in a team fight so much better than every other warrior. And also his CC. I mean, they don't have super long cooldowns. They're pretty chunky cooldowns, but they're not the end of the world. You can do them a lot in a team fight, you know.
One of the things that I've noticed about ETC is that while he's very frequently, he doesn't feel like he's very frequently picked. But what's more interesting, he's more frequently second ban than picked.
Right.
And that's because what will happen a lot of the time is you'll take something like Uther here, and then you'll take Muradin, or like a really good tank, and then you'll ban out ETC because you can't run a solo tank at that point.
Right. Okay.
And the idea behind that is you're kind of choking the draft a little bit. I mean, they buffed Johanna, but she doesn't provide the same pressure as ETC does. So a lot of times the second ETC ban just exists as a way to put pressure on the enemy team's draft, as well as you're taking away something that's good, but not so good that you're willing to take it in the first 5 picks.
Right. Okay. That actually makes a lot of sense. So the next picks coming from Tyrant, where things got a little crazy. We got the Li Ming, which of course is never crazy. She's just great. But then they went ahead and went with the Tyrael. What do you think motivated that pick there?
Actually, first I really quickly want to talk about the
please.
the bans that came out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I skipped the bans.
No worries.
So the Tyrant banned Thrall.
Yeah. So I really like this ban because ETC, while he has good initiation with Power Slide, once he Power Slides in, if he misses, he's just like he can get blown up by a lot of teams, right? It's kind of like the same idea as Anubarak Burrow charging or Muradin Dwarf tossing in. It's very easy to blow your escape and then just get blown up. So if you take Thrall, he can kind of engage from the side, and he also serves as a dive buddy for ETC. And that's really what you want. You want a source of damage and threat potential that can go in with your ETC. So even if ETC misses his power side or like misses his CC, then they can't just turn and focus him, because if they do, Thrall can still come in, hit Asunder, and win them the fight.
Right, he's so impactful on a team fight without relying on anything else. He's a solo team fight changer, you know.
Yes.
So that's one reason why, if you're playing Hero League, you might want to learn Thrall if you don't already know Thrall, because he's a great if you're solo queuing, he's a great hero to play. Because for that reason, he can swing a team fight.
He's. I my buddy joked that he's the best ranged DPS in the game.
Right.
Because he gets so much ridiculous amounts of poke. Like, you can pull more damage than Li Ming's in some games when you're poking off and stuff. So definitely like a top tier pick for your Hero League games.
Absolutely.
And then the next ban was Falstad.
Right. So Blaze banned out Falstad.
Yeah.
Is that all about Gust, or what is it about?
So we know the ending of the draft now.
Yes.
But
unfortunately, I have to find a site that lets you take your time.
Yeah. I think the idea was they understood that they were going to go Abathur. Mm-hmm. Falstad is super good against Abathur, just because he can constantly fly around the map and apply pressure. Dahaka does like the same thing, but it's more frequent teams know how to play Falstad, as well as Falstad has Mighty Gust to interrupt Mosh. Mm-hmm. So unless you hit Falstad with Mosh, you can't use Mosh ever.
So so it's a pre counter, because they know their plan coming up with Abathur.
Yeah, and it's also the disengage. Falstad's just really good with disengage. He's one of the few heroes that has extremely good disengage. So if you're taking a bad fight, he just says nope, and if you're taking a good fight, he can even like fly behind and make sure that they can't get out of the engage.
Right. So that brings up a question I asked Michael Udall last week, which I think is a good question to ask everybody, and it's how much of the draft, obviously you want your comp that you planned on and you practiced, but what tends to work better in these matches? Is the team that gets the comp thereafter, or the team that counters the comp that's being built? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Usually when you have a team that tries to when you're drafting a team comp, you know exactly what beats you, because you've ran it so many times in scrims. One of the key kind of things to note here is Illidan comps, right?
Right.
When you run an Illidan comp, you know, okay, we can't let them have Sonya, because Sonya can 1v1 an Illidan, and we don't want them to have Muradin or Uther. So usually what happens is you'll see pickups of like Uther and Muradin along with Illidan, or something along those lines, right? Mm-hmm. You'll see like a Sonya ban, or you'll take away things, so you have to know your counters. So you try and take those away or ban them. And what's actually interesting is a lot of the times things that counter your comp also work really well in your comp. Right. The example of this is Illidan Muradin, and that's like stupid scary dive for the backline. Right? Because if you get a Muradin on your face and an Illidan, you're not going to get away, and Illidan just thrives on that.
Nothing's going to save you, right?
Exactly.
So I guess the answer to that is you should always try to get the comp you want and counter what counters it, rather than counter the enemy's draft.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things about that, though, is usually these comps have 3 or 4 set pieces, or have an idea they follow. It's not usually we're going to run we're going to run like this is our 5 thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, for example, I talked about Illidan, but I'm going to talk about a different comp. This was more prevalent when we had less dive tanks, but it was like an arm's reach comp. So the idea was you picked a team comp that you could run good poke. So it was like Nazebo, and this was Ignite Kael'thas time. So this was like a year ago.
Sure.
Like you run like a decent poke comp, and then you ban and pick away Muradin and Anubarak so that they can't dive into your backline. And you limit hard engage. So what that means is, okay, we need 3 poke heroes. We need 2 poke heroes, and like 2 supports, and take away their dive tanks. So that's like that's your goal for the draft. It doesn't matter if you get Kael'thas or if you get like Nazebo, which kind of poke heroes you get, as long as you're getting that idea of the draft.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And that actually helps in Hero League too, because obviously you're not going to be able to do a full comp with a bunch of strangers, but you can get a semblance going, and ban to counter the counters to it. So good. So now we get to the Li Ming Tyrael from Tyrant.
Okay, so Sonya one of the really good things about running Sonya is, and any melee assassin really, is it takes pressure off your back line. Mm-hmm. You might have noticed it. I don't know how often you play with melee assassins in your league, but one of the things you'll notice if you're ever playing with a Kerrigan is that as a DPS, you're pretty much free to do whatever you want when Kerrigan dives in.
Right. She's such an alarm going off right in your
Yeah.
face. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like one of the key things that we used to see was Kerrigan with Nazebo, right? Because okay, everyone's running away from Kerrigan, but if everyone's running away from Kerrigan, there's nothing to interrupt Ravenous Spirit.
Right. Okay.
So things like that, right? And the idea that when you have a strong melee front line, they can't really apply as much pressure to your back line. So what the Li Ming pick is really safe and allows her to play super aggressively, as well as Sonya provides a lot of damage, so it allows her to chain resets a lot better.
So she's already a pretty safe mage,
Yeah.
and now she's safer because she has someone distracting.
Yeah, and then it means that you can also position more aggressively. One of the things that Li Ming really wants to do is position aggressively, and if you have that melee assassin, you can, because it means that you're allowed to move more forward than you can if you don't have them.
Okay, so that's a good reason to pick Li Ming with Sonya there. When is it a bad time to pick Li Ming?
Right now, with how good Li Ming is,
Yeah, does that exist?
If the enemy team is running triple tank, that's
Okay.
like when you don't want to pick it.
Right.
But I don't. Oftentimes, it doesn't make it that far.
Right.
Like Li Ming is just such a good pick right now that there isn't often a bad time to pick it, unless you need something to fill into your draft.
Right.
If that may, like if you, the only times you're not really picking it are when you're like last 2 picks.
Okay.
And you need to fill in the holes in your draft.
So tell us now then. So I get that. So she's just great. She's always been great, but she has a very couple situations where you don't want her.
Yeah.
So tell us what you think motivated the Tyrael pick here.
The Tyrael pickup is really good because it gives an excellent dive buddy for Sonya. Okay, he gets the movement speed boost with his smite, I believe it's called.
Right.
His E.
The E, yeah, it's smite.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And his shield on his W is actually really effective at negating damage, and you can talent into it and make him extra effective with Sonya because she has lightning shield and then she has the shield from Tyrael, so it's just an excellent dive buddy. And then at 16 you get even more body blocking presence with them, as well as if you ever jump in and you get on that back line and you're kind of CCing them a little bit, you can pop Sanct, and then you have like whatever the radius is of Sonya being able to do whatever she wants.
So this is straight up a pick to support Sonya.
Yeah, this is like really Korean Chinese pickup.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
that makes sense. When I saw it drafted, I was puzzled because I didn't understand the synergy between those two heroes. But that's good to know. That's good to know. So the final 2 picks from Blaze were Greymane and Abathur.
Okay, Greymane is pretty good. When he's in the hands of a really good player, he allows you to almost solo pressure the back line, which is really cool. Because what it means is Li Ming, you can apply, even though they have a Sonya, you can just run past a Sonya. And then if you're kiting back, you can still kite back. It's weird, right? Because you don't want to say he's really strong. He's a beast, yeah. When he's in the right hands, he's really good. I don't know, you watched some Tomster play on...
I have.
On Greymane, it's scary.
I have. We're going to see some of that today.
Right? Yeah. So, he can be really good. I don't know how good the Blaze player is at him, but his ability to just be super flexible is really good because it means that you're not sending ETC in solo anymore, which is also really good because he has that extra dive buddy if he needs it, and ETC also can just peel. So and also when you throw in Kael'thas's burst, you can also finish it off with the go for the throat, which is really good.
Okay, so what I'm getting from this is that you want to have a very strong melee assassin or assassin in general, and then you want to support that damage as best you can beyond healing. So is that what the Abathur pick is about here, besides the global presence? Could you protect Greymane with someone like Tyrael the same way that Tyrael's protecting the Sonya?
Kind of. Typically I just want to take a step back. Typically what you want, and what we've seen has emerged as the game has grown and included a wider hero pool, is almost every team will have at least double melee threat.
Okay.
So there will be a tank and a melee, or double tank, for the most part. Like, we'll see some exceptions, but for the most part, you'll almost always see 2 melee frontline.
Right, so tank bruiser or...
Yeah, tank bruiser, double tank, full tank, with a squid, like with a what's it called? Like with even Zeratul works there, right?
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Just two melees to get in the backline's face, because it's no longer who can kill who's tank first, because heals are there, right? So it becomes a lot more who can be effective.
That's interesting. Okay, good. I like that. So yeah, that's the Abathur obviously is very good on this map for the reasons you said before. Is there anything else you want to say about the Abathur?
What's really cool about him is you can even clone an Uther here. You probably wouldn't, but you can clone the support, and cloning the support isn't actually always as bad as it seems if your team has enough damage.
Right.
Because let's say Greymane dives in, that's an extra, I believe it's 0.75 seconds now, and heals that go on to Greymane. Obviously, you're probably going to clone Greymane. Kael'thas is like okay with the clone. What really makes him strong right now is the talents in his E that allows him to burst people super effectively. So what you'd probably see with this comp was a double Greymane diving onto Li Ming.
Okay.
Constantly. As well as the way you play Abathur. I don't know how in-depth you've gone to Abathur picks or how much you know about it. I can talk. I'm a pretty good Abathur player, so I can talk a little bit about it if you want.
Please do.
Okay. So on this map, the style you're going to see is you throw down mines in rotation areas. So commonly walk through areas, you throw down mines, and what this does is it slows down rotations for enemy teams. So for the first couple tributes, you can almost fight a 4v4 with Abathur, with Abathur's hat, and it makes it 4.5 versus 4, because someone can't get to the lane quick enough because the mines are slowing them and demounting them.
That's happened to me thousands of times, yes.
That's what you should be doing as Abathur there.
Yeah.
And then while that's occurring, he'll hide in one of the bushes in the lane and stay within experience range, so that not only are you getting the push in the lane, but you're getting the body soak from Abathur,
right. You're
as well as getting the hat in the team. Yeah, you're getting a hat in the team fight. And then the final thing that you get from it that you really want is the ability to poke. And I don't know if Uther ended up going the W build, but what you can go here is W build as Uther for like 4 and 7, and it gives you good interruptibility. And Greymane's cocktails obviously give good interruptibility, and that means the longer the fight goes, because you're soaking that extra lane, the more extra experience you get.
So the 4 is the extra width and length, or is that 7?
I'm not 100% sure.
And the other talent that you're talking about is which one? For the W?
Yeah, it's one of them is increase heal per target hit, I think, and the other one is radius and width.
The width. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, so looking at this draft, if you were a betting man and you wanted to decide, okay, who outdrafted who, or basically what's going to be the story of this game, just looking at this draft.
That is a Muradin, right?
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot the Muradin. Yes,
okay.
It is a Muradin.
So,
if you'd like to talk about the Muradin first, please do.
It means that it's a lot hard. Sonya and Tyrael can be more aggressive, while Muradin can engage and then peel for Li Ming a little bit more. It makes it so that Greymane doesn't have a free backline because there's no peel for.
He's a straight tank because they need a straight tank, basically. He's
Muradin. You
he's
could
always
have
going to be
opted
Muradin.
for because you can't get a second support with this double dive front line. It's like a safety thing, right? You could run another DPS and just try and blow up Greymane when he dives in, but you're going to see double Greymane, so it's going to be a little bit harder to do. So it's a pretty good choice. I'm surprised he made it this far through, but
there he is, 10th pick.
Yeah. If I had to say who won the draft,
that's a Kael'thas, but remember.
yeah, I remember. I don't like to say who wins drafts because it's more who can play to their win condition.
That's not what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I said that, but what I mean is, where is each team's draft going to be strong? Who's your late game team? Who's your mid game team? Who's going to get? Yeah.
Well, what's going to be? You're going to see a pretty decent early, very early lane rotation game from Blaze here, because they have the CC train to lock someone up, and they have pretty decent wave clear. And if you need to, you can throw Abathur in a solo lane, and then he just kind of will absorb all the experience that's in that lane. The problem is with that, Tyrant doesn't have has very hard to kill laners.
Right.
So it's going to be hard for him to get those picks. So the early game should go in the way of Tyrant because the Abathur pick. The Abathur pick kind of loses you the early game a little bit. The mid game should go in the favor of it should be a little bit closer. About 10-16. I think Blaze, if they play the team fights correctly, have a good shot at winning. And post 20, it really depends how effective the Abathur is, but the team fights 100% will go to Tyrant from that point on.
Post 20.
Because, yeah, you'll get double or triple hardened shield, I believe.
Right.
And triple hardened shield is like gross. You're not going to be able to kill them.
so
the
basically,
only thing there is, can Abathur do his job effectively to put pressure on the lanes hard enough that you can take a serious...
right.
Like, Abathur has to win the game through backdooring post 20 unless they take 20 with a serious advantage and they can team fight better.
So Blaze's draft, it has a timer on it, basically. They have a window to win in, and if they don't, it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, it becomes Abathur's game to win.
Right, okay. All right. So rather than going over the whole game, I put together little videos highlighting some of the team fights and the highlights from this match. So let's take a look at that now. Production value is very high here. I'm going to, close that and then just open a video. So give me a sec on that.
Yeah, no worries.
Tyrant versus Blaze. There we are. Let me just add that. Alright. Nope. I did not want to listen to
Well,
that.
actually, the most important thing about this draft is who wins
go
the
ahead.
skin war.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because as everyone who's played this game knows, 90% of the game is decided in Skinergy. So.
Yeah, and it's actually incredibly important, so we should take a look at that first. Yeah, I can't even tell. So there's a big mess in the Cursed Hollow right now. I can't see the skins. So I'm going to go ahead and start this, and I'll pause it if we need to. This is the first team fight. This is at the first trib, and you can see they're both level 6, and the heavy warrior comp here is really strong. As you can see, they're just not able to put out the damage quite yet with their comp. Is that about what you would expect from that?
Yeah, they kind of want a bit of a sustained fight. Mm-hmm. Once Li Ming hits 7, her damage really comes online.
Right. So this is the same thing here. It's pre-10. There's no ults, and they're able to fight for a while, but the sheer hit point numbers from Blue here is just really strong right now. So.
Yeah. Well, what was? Sorry, I'm a bit behind on stream.
Oh right, I didn't even consider that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the first team fight is just finishing up.
Okay.
Yeah. So
go ahead and talk about what you're seeing. That's fine.
The fact that Li Ming won, like that they won the fight with Li Ming. Okay, I'll wait for the second team fight, but then we'll talk about both of them. Okay, so
yeah, production value.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so Kael'thas just goes down. Zeus is getting jumped on a little bit. Gonna get body blocked. Yeah, it's wilted going down too. Okay, so this is really what you expected. Is this level 11 team fight?
Yeah, I'm gonna play the level 11 team fight now.
Okay.
You see, this is post ults. You have a really big Divine Shield saving Kael'thas there, and then a huge Mosh. So those ults allow Kael'thas to put out so much more damage than he could before, and actually really nice Uther play throughout that whole fight. But this is where you're talking about the draft. As far as the Abathur has been soaking all this time in all these fights, so that's what happened there. And they actually get a team wipe here. And I'm just going to finish out the video and talk about it.
Okay, we can finish, yeah.
Yeah. So they get the team wipe there, and that's actually the third trip for them. So once they hit 10 and we're able to get the damage out, the rest of the story goes the same way. You can see Sonya gets absolutely blown up by the Kael'thas Greymane, and it definitely had a lot to do with the Abathur soaking in the top lane and the ability for Li Ming to stay really safe, or I'm sorry, Kael'thas to stay really safe in those team fights. And you can see they took him out pretty quickly, 19 minutes into the game, and they did not get level 20. So, mission accomplished, I guess, according to basically what you were saying earlier. So,
one of the things that I actually noticed is, just from that level 11 team fight, the pressure that the double Greymane put on the Li Ming. And the Ancestral just barely missed on Sonya, too. That's kind of huge.
Yes.
So, what it looked like was they fell behind early, as you would expect with an Abathur draft, but Abathur was able to keep them close enough in experience with his soaking, and then was able to do a lot with his split pushing.
Right.
So the split pushing is pretty much the reason you pick Abathur, as well as like the global presence. So the double Greymane in the specifically the team fight with the Divine Mosh or with the Mosh Pit,
Right.
where it hit 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think he had 4, but
Yeah, because Li Ming wasn't in it.
Yeah.
Typically during that time, Li Ming should be able to put out damage. I don't know if Li Ming went Wave of Force, but she 100% should have.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's like
she did not.
Okay, 100% you should take Wave of Force there. You never don't take Wave of Force against ETC.
Right.
That's that actually could have lost them the game, to be honest, because that fight was
so pretty sure she didn't. I cast it a couple days ago, but
okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
What actually happened was Greymane, the Abathur Greymane jumped onto Li Ming, and then during that time the real Greymane was able to damage down the tanks a little bit. Kel'Thas was able to get free damage. What should happen there for Li Ming is she gets on the side and she just starts firing out abilities and damaging anyone she can. And then if she can get someone low enough, they can actually win the fight.
Right.
But the problem was the Abathur was on her the whole time, and because he was, she had to back out of the fight. She had to use her spells on him. He ate the Arcane Orb, most of the magic missile damage, and then right when Li Ming thought she could come back into the fight to deal damage again, the real Greymane ulted and just wiped her out.
Right, instantly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I guess that game went pretty much as well as it could for the Abathur there. But the way we're hearing it is like Abathur's great because he does all these awesome things and he can get you extra experience. But when is Abathur a bad idea? What maps? What comps?
Small maps.
Sure.
Really quickly, small maps.
Mm-hmm.
Maps where he can't effectively body soak. Mm-hmm. One map that he's like, people have said don't run him on. I like to play him on, but he can also be really bad on, is Battlefield of Eternity. Mm-hmm. Because it's so, like, the effect he has is so polar on that map. Because if the enemy team is smart enough to know to just look in the bushes where you are frequently and poke off of their immortal, or just, they could even soak in a 3v4, and you can't get up there to body soak as Abathur, like, you're not going to do that well. What Abathur does really well on Curse is because of the way the objectives are positioned, right? You're either in the top side of the map or in the bottom side of the map. The objectives are never in the middle, and he can just sit on the far side of the map. So it gives him that early game, and Abathur's real weakness is the early game.
Okay. So the reason I asked that, and the reason I wanted to emphasize that, is before we go to the next game, is Abathur players in my Hero League games, it's not, you need to, I guess what Baba Booey is trying to say here is you have to consider your hero in a lot of factors for picking your hero, not just you like the hero and you think he's good. There's huge map considerations to make, and that's one of them. That's many of them with Abathur that he just went over. So
yeah. Your team. The key thing here is your team needs to know how to play with Abathur, and needs to effectively play with Abathur for you to pick him. Right. So, like, don't take early fights. Take small skirmishes that are even, that Abathur can help you win. Like, one of the key things that you see was Abathur Zeratul, right? And the reason that was so strong was because Abathur Zeratul, mm-hmm. you could get on one person and make any fight that they thought was a 1v1 a 2.5 versus 1, or a 2.5 versus 2, and quickly turn the tide of a fight, as well as gank extremely effectively with it. So there's like two things you need to consider: is how well can your draft play with Abathur already? Mm-hmm. So how well does your ult synergize? Right? If you have no one that you can ult effectively, then you shouldn't pick Abathur. Right?
So it's hard to play Abathur effectively without a lot of communication.
Or just like a basic like effective communication. It's your responsibility as an Abathur player to make sure your team understands how to play with Abathur, mm-hmm. and it's your job to make sure that you keep your team in that early game. Like, that early game is yours. You have to work through that.
Right. Good. Yeah, that's good information. So the next game we're gonna do, second game of the night before we close out, is gonna be a game you cast with J-How, right?
Yes, Hot Dog Burglars versus Tempo Storm, I believe.
Hot Dog Burglars versus Tempo Storm on Sky Temple, is that right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So that's what we are going to do. So I'm going to start that draft on 1 second while I open all these links. And ready. All right.
Okay.
All right, cool. So the first ban was for hot dog burglars, and once again we see, same as last game, they're going to ban out the Tassadar.
Yep. And as I said before, he's just a really good pick. I believe. I don't actually know if Toronto was second banned.
It was.
I think she was.
Yes. So
But
there's that.
that's like it's like the triangle, right? If you don't ban Tassadar and you don't first pick him, the other team doing Tassadar is really hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do ban Tassadar, then the other team has to pick Toronto, has to ban Toronto because she kind of counters them, or
Right.
she's the counter to not having Tassadar.
Right. So same thing we were talking about before. Yeah, they're these centerpieces that counter each other and kind of are a package deal as far as bans and picks.
Yeah, if you ever played like Fire Emblem, it's like the weapon triangle, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yes, that's a good analogy. I like that. So, first pick from Hot Dog Burglars was the Sylvanas. Tell us why you think they prioritize Sylvanas so highly.
It's part of their draft. This draft is really good with Sylvanas. Also, it provides really good early game pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And Sky Temple is a map that if you win the early game, it's really easy to snowball. It's one of the few maps that is as easy to snowball because of how impactful the objective is. As well as you can punish super heavily, and if you decide to rotate 3 to a lane quickly and your opponents are out of position, that's like a fort gone with Sylvanas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's a monster on maps like Tomb the Spider Queen and things for those reasons. Yeah. But I wasn't sure about her strength in Sky Temple. But yeah.
Yeah, it's the way that the objective works, right? Because you have to fight. Like on Curse Hall, you can poke off a little bit and then disengage, and maybe one team gets it. You have to fight on Sky Temple. You have to, right?
So Tempo Storm opts for Kael'thas Uther after the Sylvanas pick.
Uther is, I think in this situation, Tempo Storm knows the draft that Hot Dog Burglars are going for. Okay. Uther's really good with that draft, as well as Uther's really good with Kael'thas because A, it gives him good peel, and B, it gives him stun follow-up.
Okay, so it looks like now that we see the Sonya Rhaegar coming out for Hot Dog Burglars, it looks like they're going to for a similar draft that we saw last game out of Blaze, actually, with the Sonya Rhaegar. Sonya just a really high priority melee assassin.
Yeah.
Is that basically what that's about?
Yeah, good melee assassin, provides excellent pressure in the front line, and like as I said before, the combo is pretty good. Like it's you pick the 1-2 here because it's just good.
Right.
Yeah.
Tempo Storm then bans Abathur. So could you elaborate a little bit about Abathur on this map, and also this is a similar draft, so basically how he applies here and why they wanted to ban him.
Abathur's also stupid good on this map.
Mm-hmm.
The way he pushes lanes is so good, and because this map is often decided by shots specifically on the core from the temples. If the quicker you can get down structures, the better.
Mm-hmm.
As well as the same thing I talked about before, right? Your ability to slow down rotations is really valuable. And then double Sonya is just terrifying for Kael'thas.
Right. I play a lot of Kael'thas, and I'm already scared just thinking about it. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the band that came out for Hot Dog Burglars after that was the ETC.
So again, it's one of those things where like you don't usually see it as a first ban, or like you don't usually see it picked in the first rotations, but you'll see it as a second ban, and it's because honestly I think it's their draft is really weak to ETC.
Sure.
It's really weak to it. If you ever get Mosh Pit with Divine Shield is one of those things that if you ever get it, you can just win the game.
Right. It's such a
Mosh Pit can literally just win you the game by itself. It's happened a lot of time in Hero League games where like. I'm sure you've experienced this. You're down, and a mosh pit just wins you the game because it's 5
minutes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's one of the few. It's just one of the few ults in the game like that in BP, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, they're the Hail Mary ults that can change everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that ban makes sense. So this is where it gets interesting to me. They take Arthas Greymane, and what is it about Arthas that counters this comp that you think they're seeing building here?
So, Arthas provides himself a stupid amount of sustain with Army of the Dead. As well as Syndragoza is just really good if you're snowballing a game anyways, because you can Syndragoza a fort or a keep and just rush it down and take it without any issue. The Greymane pickup synergizes super well with Arthas because Executioner, as well as Greymane is just it's Tom Strong Greymane, so like you pick it.
Right. So you think it's Arthas is he's a executioner's best friend for sure.
Yeah.
Like that talent is so great with him, especially with Sindragosa. Um, coming out for Hot Dog Burglars, we got where is she? We got a Lily and a Thrall.
Yeah. So the Lily pick, Lily double support with Lily is the draft they were running all day.
Really?
You saw it last week.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and they had ran it once every series and won every single time.
Okay.
Specifically against Tempo Storm.
So
they won with it.
What is it? What is so strong about it with these guys? Why do they like it so much?
So the way they would play it is actually really interesting. So they'd pick double cleanse, Rhaegar, Lily, and you can't cleanse yourself as a healer anymore. So anytime anyone got caught out, they'd be cleansed,
right,
and they'd run away. And then they would sustain back up as they were kiting. So the reason Sylvanas is really good is because Sylvanas provides a lot of just slow chip damage and a lot of spread damage that you can't heal effectively.
Okay.
So as they're kiting back, they'll get the slows and they'll get the daggers from Sylvanas, and Thrall will be able to throw out his chain lightnings, and the blinds will come out from Lily. So like what ends up happening is a fight happens, and Hot Dog Burglars looks in a really bad position because they're all really low. As they're slowly kiting back, they get to full health again, and then the enemy team's at half, and they just push back forward with a Sunder or like a Sonya Ancient Spear and take the fight.
So it's this draft that they've done over here on Hot Dog Burglars. It's all about kind of this methodical kind of wearing teams down with poke and poke and poke, and you can't hit me because you're blind. Poke and poke like that.
Exactly.
That's the idea. Okay.
And they run Water Dragon for the same reason, right? You can disengage with it, and then it does like a decent amount of damage, but because they're slowed so much, it allows you to re-engage.
Okay.
And the Arthas pick is actually really good because it means Uther doesn't have to heal him, so you almost get a second support value out of it.
Yeah.
Because he gets so much self-healing. And then the last pick was Zeratul.
Yes, last pick was Zeratul.
And the reason when we talked about this game, when I saw the Zeratul pick, I just thought Tempo Storm won.
Really? Why is that?
Because the difference between the draft that Tempo Storm ran the first game and this game, the only difference is it's a Zeratul instead of a Sonya. And what that told me was Tempo Storm has an idea of how to beat this, and this is the answer, and it's Zeratul. And the reason I thought at the time, he went Army of the Dead, but I thought he was going to Sindragosa, is you can VP and guarantee a hard engage. And that's the weakness of Hot Dog Burglars' team, is getting a good engage and making them stay in the fight. So what VP does is it forces them to stay near you, and they can't disengage effectively. Because if they try and disengage, they lose one person.
Right.
Because you're kiting back with a teammate that can't kite back with you. Right? So then as soon as they're too far back, they just turn and lose everything the VP.
Sure.
And it also means that you can really spread the focus of the healers. And what we'll see a lot of excellent play is the two healers will stay together so they can cleanse each other if someone gets caught. But then Zeratul will pressure like Sylvanas, and Greymane will pressure Thrall. Okay. So then the healers kind of have to leave each other, or they can't effectively heal their entire team.
So my question about the VP on that is, so even with the VP popping and then the blind and maybe like a Sunder coming out, you don't think it'd be effective for getting away from them?
The problem with it is the difference. I'm sure Tempo Storm has played against a lot of Sunders, and when you know how to play against Sunder with VP, all you do is you spread out enough.
Right.
The mistake a lot of teams will make when they're playing with a VP is they'll clump up in the same area, and then you can get the Sunder, or you can get the Sunder out of a Maw. Same thing can happen, right? You can just win a game because of that. They know how to do it, and it's not so much about grouping up around it, but it's the idea of if you can't hit a multiple person Sunder, then you're not going to be able to disengage effectively. Sunder is a lot more used here as either a disengage or re-engage tool, and if you're using mid-fight to just if you can't effectively disengage or re-engage with it, it's not being used well.
Okay, that's illuminating. Yeah, I get it. Looking at this, do you think the kind of chippy wear down comp here is looking at the draft, I guess, same question as before. What is going to be the narrative of this game as far as if you were predicting it? Obviously, you know what happened. You cast it. But if you were guessing.
Tempo Storm needs to win the fights quickly or completely get out of there.
Okay. Yeah, they don't want to deal in a war of attrition because they'll lose every time.
So either they need to make sure that they can kill someone, or they can take out one. They need to be able to take out one person and then continue pushing. They need to know their limits very effectively. Right? And they need to pay attention to their limits, because the moment that they get a little bit too low is the moment hot dog burglars can turn.
Okay, so...
And, with their team, they have a stupid amount of chase down potential, too.
Right. So that's another thing to consider playing in your own games, watching it at home, is when you get a draft, it's one of the hardest things to do is to identify what is this team about. Like, what is it? Should it do poke? Should it just try to wombo? And that's one of the hardest skills in this game, I think, is to clearly identify what happened in the draft and how to play with it,
Yeah, and it's this game specifically, right? Because you can't win lane-win game.
Right.
Very effectively.
Right,
you need to...
You can't
your
send
team fighting,
a hero top to farm.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
The team that can fight as 5 better usually just wins. Mm-hmm. Because you need to be able to identify exactly what you said, what wins you the game, and how you win and how you lose the game. And if you can start identifying that as soon as you go into your draft, you can start making effective calls and helping your team out more.
Right. So that's something for me to work on, and for a lot of people to work on, I think, especially going into the new ranked mode, is identifying your win conditions with your draft.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
How do we win this game versus how do we lose this game?
Okay, got it. So I have another movie here, so give me just a moment while I open that up and get it back on.
Yeah, so feel free to talk about any of it while it's happening. I just got to wait for it to match up.
Yeah, no problem. I did not consider that, but next time I'll have that taken care of. All right. So, display. Okay. So it gets right into the action here when I started off. The team. This is the level 13 team fight. There's the water dragon Baba Booey was talking about earlier. And then the blinds are going down. You can see the Greymane not able to do the poke like he's so comfortable doing. And the Legion of the Dead, Army of the Dead, the sustain on Arthas. So these are the exact sort of things he was talking about. That being said, the double support from Hot Dog Burglars is keeping their team very, very healthy. And this is what he emphasized here. They didn't win the team fight quickly, and Tempo Storm immediately backs out completely. They vacate the premises, and there's no harm done because they were going to end up losing that war of attrition. And I actually don't clip it here because the next fight goes down pretty quickly. Both teams came out of that relatively unscathed, even in the mana department. So you can expect another conflict pretty shortly, which should be coming up here in just a moment.
Yeah, this actually happened a lot. What you're talking about is a small engage would happen, and then no one would die, and both teams would disengage.
Right, which you don't see a lot of, especially in your own games. It's hardcore Berserk all the time. So there's another engage happening now, and Stray getting in there with the Thrall. But you can see the Zeratul doing a pretty good job of harassing, but the Greymane is able to get in the back line and get his Divine Shield off. So he's nice and safe. Actually, he's not nice and safe because he tried to fight a little too long and got low. But there you can see the damage on Drafthouse coming out. We have a 2-for-2 trade actually in this fight, so it's pretty even trade. They're going to re-engage here, and this is exactly the sort of thing Tempo Storm was hoping to avoid. Looks like Drafthouse is maybe going to have to back out. Yeah, so he does. And then 15, this is one of the last fights. They're fighting over the middle temple. And you can see the Arthas with his sustain and the nice Zeratul. Actually, she gets the Water Dragon off on Drafthouse this time, which could have put him in a lot of danger, but the Void Prison is going to negate that. Hopefully this video is not too loud. It sounds loud to me. There's the invulnerable Greymane, which is one of the scariest things you'll ever see coming in there. And you can see they wiped 3 of them there for absolutely no loss. And they won those. They were able to delete heroes very, very quickly in those late games, which is exactly what their draft was aiming for. So they went in once level 19 to level 16 in 15 minutes.
Yeah. So one of that fight where it ended up being a 2-for-2 and then Goku got the kill on Goat.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought they were going to lose the fight as soon as they re-engaged at the end.
So did I. That's why I started casting it that way, and then I was like, oh,
Yeah. So what ended up happening was Goku's play on Zeratul was really good because the communication was, we're going to focus Rhaegar. He's going to blow his heals quickly, and then Zeratul's able to get into the back and just harass anyone. And Lily can't target her heals, right? Which is the reason she's not picked as frequently is because her heals don't have any targets, right? It's just like the lowest health person, go.
That is her big weakness, for sure.
Yeah. So what that did was it exploited it because Zeratul has pretty good burst coming out of the shadows, and then when they're all running away, he thrives in confusion,
Okay.
right?
Right, yeah.
So he was able to do that, and that's what happened in a lot of fights. We saw that he would jump in, jump out, and then maybe go with whoever Tom Sawyer's dive on, he'd go back onto.
Right.
So it was very like you would blow a cooldown really quickly, and then get back in on someone else so that cooldown wasn't up and they couldn't effectively heal.
Right, and I'm a big Greymane player. I've played a boatload of Greymane, and that is one of his major things and that's why Eyes of the Dark has become a pretty popular pick since his cocktail nerf. If the team is very aware of him at all times, he has a really hard time getting anything done. But as soon as they become distracted or confused, he can really exploit them. So that's definitely what happened there. Yeah. Also, one weakness you didn't mention about Lily, or maybe it's a strength, is why is her portrait so enormous? Look at this. She's like 35 feet tall compared to everyone else.
I honestly don't know. And if she's like the same size as Cho'Gall.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, hold on.
That's actually scarier than Cho'Gall. Like,
Giant panda.
Giant panda.
Yeah,
all right,
raid boss Lily.
Yeah, that's right. She probably has a lot of health. That was awesome. I ran into a couple issues, but we got a lot of good information out of you today, and I really appreciate you coming on the show.
No problem.
Did you have any questions or anything to closing remarks?
Nope. Follow me on Twitter.
His Twitter's
Twitter
right
is
there.
below me. Come out tomorrow. I'm casting the first 4 games of ESL Burbank on the community stream.
On that, by the way.
Thank you. It should be really exciting. Gonna be great games. Thank you very much again for having me. Is there any more questions you had for me?
Let's see. I was going to ask where people can get a hold of you on the internet if they want to see what you have to say about HOTS, but you covered that.
Yep.
You'll be casting tomorrow. Did you have anything for me before we take off? As far as like, I don't know. I'm willing to take feedback right here live on the air. I don't even care. Let's do it.
The only thing I'd change is the video. It would be nicer to be able to talk about it while it's happening.
Yeah, I just spaced that. Yeah.
And then I think you can do the way I would do the draft is PowerPoint.
Okay. PowerPoint.
And then just click every time you need to do it because like the draft is.
Why are you so smart, bro? Where'd you get that big old brain? Oh my God, that's brilliant. Yes.
Yeah, that's how it is. You can just click or whatever. Yeah. Just so it's easier.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, man. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, this has been Nexus Drafthouse. It's a show all about the Heroes of the Storm draft. You can follow us at Storm Legacy Team or on the channel you're watching right now on Twitch. Storm Legacy Team on Twitter. We are a fan site. We are a sister site to SC Legacy, and we have some neat content creators, and we're always making stuff and covering events and things, so check us out. I am Sahara Drac. You can also follow me. I stream every weeknight. I usually stream HOTS. Sometimes I stream other games, but it's mostly HOTS. And we'll be doing this show